Welcome back to another episode of Pulse of Polynesia in the Hot Seat, where we elevate the voices, stories, and strength of our Polynesian people across the world. We welcome all our viewers, especially the ones from the Pacific region, but also welcome those who are viewing from the United States and the other parts of the world. I'm your host, Chief Tasiafe Arlington, and joining me from Anchorage, Alaska is my co-host, Ron Posala, better known as DJ Ronnie Ron. Yeah, salufalava. Ronnie Ron.
Hey, Chalo for everyone. Good to be here. So, what's up to my co-host and the man on the hot seat as well.
Yeah, tailava Ron. From Samoa to the sidelines of the Miami Hurricanes, Keiki Misipeka is redefining what it means to lead with culture, courage, and connection. In the hot seat, we welcome Coach Keiki Misipeka. Coach Misipeka, most recent milestone in his career is newly hired as the personnel talent and NIL staff for the University of Miami football team. He is one of our sons of Samoa, hailing from the hometown of Pango, American Samoa, where he also graduated from Samoana High School. Keiki Ole Sharks. His coaching experience includes defensive coordinator for the Samoana Sharks. And we ask you, Coach, how does it feel to be surrounded by a bunch of lions?
You know what? I'm truly humbled. I think that back in the days, it was the Lions and the Sharks that always went at it during that time. But we're in a new era, and definitely times have changed.
Ron, laso pingalo kakouso.
Yeah, times have changed. It was a whole different story back in the day. I think the conversation would be a little different, but like nowadays, I think we've kind of grown a little bit at this point.
Yeah. So you can tell our age. Back in our day, that was a rivalry, and the rivalry goes all the way back. So it's always the Lions and the Sharks. So jokes aside, let me continue with this wonderful introduction. So he was also a DB's coach at Farrington High School, an assistant coach for Silverado High School, a running backs coach and international recruiting coordinator for the Garden City Community College, the running backs special teams and recruiting coordinator for the Delaware State, also a running backs coach and international recruiting coordinator for Missouri Southern, the GM and running backs coach for the University of Hawaii. Coach, that's a lot of experience there. Please let me continue, because we don't want to undermine all your accomplishments. So just give me a break there. Coach earned his general studies degree in 2017 from Southeast Missouri State University. We also want to mention that Coach's playing experience includes playing running back for Palomar College, then running back for the University of Hawaii. He also played for Edmonton Eskimos with the Canadian Football League. He played with the Mauna Samoa International Rugby Team and American National Rugby League. And those are just a few of the coach's career highlights. Last, we must acknowledge that Coach is married and a father of 8. So in addition to all his work, Coach still has time to put aside his coaching cap and don his husband and father hat to take care of his ainga. And believe it or not, that was the short list, as the coach will cover more throughout our podcast. Yeah, talofalava, Coach Misipeka, and welcome to Pulse of Polynesia in the hot seat.
Thank you, Arlington, and thank you, DJ Ron. You guys are too kind and gracious with you guys' introduction. I'm just grateful to be here, and I think first and foremost, I want to give thanks to our Heavenly Father, just for the many blessings, and just for the opportunity to be on this platform, and just kind of thank you guys, and they also as well just for reaching out and just kind of putting this thing together.
Yeah. Thank you again, Coach. And really thank you for accepting our invitation. But before we get into the meat of our podcast, I heard you just got through with a very important to'ana'i today. Are you willing to share that with us, the families that you were with? Is that something you can share with us?
Well, I mean, it was just we're recruiting, and a lot of get-togethers and whatnot. And the Kongai was planned, but there was a lot of bumpy roads with just us wrapping up our camps, wrapping up official visits. So the plan Kongai didn't go accordingly, and literally just a lot of last minute planning, and got the message from Leaso and literally had to run to Walmart to pick up some zip ties so that way I can prepare for my container and everything before I head out tomorrow morning. So, but for the most part, I did get to connect with the Mawingua family. Got to meet with them briefly, and hang out with them. So it was really good just to have that little Polynesian community out here at the University of Miami, being able to connect with them and a few other Polynesians that are currently here in Florida. So it's truly a blessing.
Yeah. It's a unique market that you got there. You got a blend of almost everything, but still have a lot of polys over there. And I apologize. I should have explained this to our viewers, because it's not just Samoan, but so what a tonai is, the best way I can describe it is this Sunday feast. And I know all the Polynesian islands do the same. So just think of it as a lunch. That's what Coach was participating in, part of his Sunday routine. Yeah. Who's Ron?
Man, so you're growing up in American Samoa. How did growing up shape your values and approach to sports and leadership?
You know what? I think that growing up as a little kid, the foundations and just the upbringing and just seeing, I guess, the limited resources that we went through, and being so young and innocent as we were in the youth, and being exposed to the things that I know now, I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful to what Samoa has turned me into. I can tell you that the journey was not pretty when I left. When I left the islands, but that going through a lot of life lessons, bumpy roads, has definitely shaped who I am today.
Thank you for that
Coach,
answer.
looking back at at your younger years, we didn't have AAU, or was there a version of AAU in Samoa, or were we just naturally gifted, to play different sports? I know football and rugby were not just the only two sports you played at as a kid. Where did you play at? Just picking up sports at a young age.
Well, it all started, back in Samoa, playing, rugby, backyard rugby, and just running around, the elementary school yards and running around in the village, and that's kind of where it all kind of started. Then football came along, which was great, and then got into track. So that was kind of the niche just growing up back on the island. So that was a pretty awesome transition, just going through the early stages of youth, elementary, and high school ball. So that was a great childhood memory.
Man, that's awesome. Since you're still in the football realm as a career now. So what kind of sparked your love for football, or I should say also who sparked your love for football, and how did that develop into a passion now that you've done it professionally and internationally and as a career?
Well, I think, to be honest, this journey kind of fell on my lap. When I got done playing rugby, I had returned home back in American Samoa, and there was two twin brothers, the Smart Brothers, and they had a nonprofit organization called Fieldhouse 100. And during that time, the focus of that nonprofit was helping the student athletes from American Samoa get football scholarships, softball scholarships for the female athletes. And then when I got back after playing, they're like, "Hey, how would you like to be part of our organization? We want you to be the professional development for the rugby arm since you played rugby." So I said, yeah, jumped on board, helped them, kind of facilitate the rugby piece. But I told them, like, I shared with them, like, you folks know, I also have a football background. So that kind of slowly transitioned, just kind of naturally transitioned and linked up with them. And then we started partnering up to help student athletes from American Samoa. We did signing day. It's meeting with families. And although I was tied and I coached for Samoana, what I looked at was, when I left the island and I looked at that experience, it wasn't about just being from Samoana. That little kid in me, understanding the limited resources, the struggles that we went through back on the island, my mentality was, it's not about just helping our student athletes from Samoana. It's helping all our student athletes. And the thing is that I want the generation now, when I left for college, it wasn't about Samoana. I went to Snow College. I met Jared Reed. I met Gordon Reed. I met Sean Umi, who were from Leone. I met Tenny Barber, Kalani Barber from Whangaitua. It wasn't about Leone, Whangaitua, Samoana. It was, hey man, we're from Samoa, and it just kind of naturally gravitated in that we had to look after each other. And that mentality, I think about, hey, it's just want to be able to help all our people.
You mentioned a name there, Kalani Barber. Is that our Kalani Barber that's also on our panel? I'm curious. Yeah.
I was about to
Did you
say,
have any
is that
scholarships
Tiki
coming
Barber?
out?
Oh, so you know what? Sorry, not Tiki Barber. Teleni Barber. Sorry, Teleni.
Must be from the same family. So you mentioned scholarships. Looking back, after your career, what was available to you coming out?
I was really grateful. I had Momoa Vaial as our head coach, Elias Savali, also known as Mr. Perfect, as our offensive coordinator. And during our time, I think I was really grateful because that team that we had, I think we had about 11 kids that got scholarships just from that team from Samoana High School. And Momoa was a very big part of that. And so I got the opportunity. I got a scholarship to Snow College. And so things just took off from there.
That's great to hear. That's one of those things, I know some of the counselors were pushing it, but at a young age, especially your younger years, you're really not listening to the counselors, even though those were available. But eventually, I think when I applied for it was an academic scholarship. It wasn't the athletic scholarship. But, from Samoa, you really didn't pay attention to them. But it was good to hear what you mentioned. But I wanted to ask you about you said you started with the rugby scholarship. Did you guys have any success stories with the rugby scholarships?
There was no rugby at the collegiate level that offered scholarships during that time. So it was very limited. It was more so, hey, can we get these student athletes at the time? What was big in the US was club rugby. And club rugby was kind of the form of amateur, where they actually, not every club, the clubs that were pretty financially stable, that would take care of athletes, pay for their flights, put them into housing, transportation, would pay them like a salary or a monthly stipend, however you want to call it. So those were kind of the opportunities that were available during that time. I think 15, 20 years later, there are now rugby scholarships that are available at the collegiate level.
Yeah. That was good to hear there. Sorry, I think you were trying to ask something, Ron. Didn't mean to
I
cut you
don't
off.
know. No, you're good. I mean, I was just gonna ask, like, what was life for you growing up in Pango? How was that?
I think like every kid, it's came from good parents, and I mean it's you live freely. I mean it's you go to school and hang out with your friends, and
The days
same
of
thing.
no responsibility, huh?
Yeah, strict parents and a strict father, and um, and just involved a lot of sports. And I think my father as well was involved a lot of sports and coaching and with volleyball, and I got to kind of tag along, and he kind of helped pay the wave for me. It was like, hey, it's pushed me in sports, and that's all he knew, and that's something that I'm grateful for. I do know that there are challenges for some of our youth in wanting to participate in sports, but at the same time, they also have their obligations as far as their fiaos or chores or falabelaves, and some of these student athletes or students, they do the best they can to try and navigate and make those things work. But growing up in Samoa, I truly am grateful for my mom and dad, and the foundation that they had laid, at that early stage of my life.
Roger that, brother.
That transition, coming from Samoa, now you're playing college ball. Was there a big jump in talent or experience, the playing level difficulty?
Absolutely. And if I were to put my journey into 3 words, it was good, bad, and ugly. And I've shared this with a lot of the student athletes that I helped from Samoa or that signed to whichever university that came from. And like I said, my parents raised me the best way they knew how. But I'll tell you that my very first year of college, I went to jail. My mom flew all the way from Samoa to bail me out on Christmas Eve. And I literally had to look at my mom just from the other side of the wall, in the other side of the glass. And I just broke down, And I think if there's anything that they didn't fail, I failed myself. And I think, and that's the message I share with every kid. We come from such a small island, and when you leave, well, guess what we don't have? We don't have mom and dad looking over our backs. We don't have our mom and dad to tell us what to do. And, it's the gloves are off, and you're thrown into real life, where nobody would tell you go to class. Nobody would tell you wake up. And I didn't have that. And those things, I wasn't trained. I wasn't focused. And so, I mean, like I said, it all goes back to it was good, bad, and ugly. But, I think that Christmas Eve, it really kind of sent a shockwave, to my family back home, and just family in period, because it's just out of character. But now that I'm in this space, I pull a lot of these kids in from Samoa that I recruit, and I sit down and I have a heart-to-heart conversation with them, and I'm not afraid to talk to them. I'm not afraid to tell them my story because I want them to hear it, because I don't want them to fall into that trap or fall into the same mistakes that I made.
No, that's well put, Coach, and that's why it's important, because you're entering these homes, you're talking to the kids, you're talking to the parents, and in addition to that, you're also visiting with those high school coaches. But uh, people want to hear someone who has a relatable story, to have those struggles. But it's good to hear what you said. The main thing is, where are you at now, right? We all make mistakes when we're young. I think it was General Colin Powell who also mentioned, he asked the question, where do you think I graduated in my class? And everyone thought, yeah, you must be top of the class. You're one of our best generals in America. And he says, no, I think it was like the bottom third or like three to the last. And he says, but where am I at now? I'm on top of the class, right? I mean, where it's what you do with it and how do you finish out your career. So it's good to hear the struggles, but you're making a good point there. People will look at you where you're at now and say, oh, it must have been easy. Look at Coach, he's got it all, but people won't understand what the hard knocks that you went through. So appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And just to kind of reiterate what you said, when people see the platform, see the space, they see the logo, wow, University of Miami, and it was not an easy route to get here. And I think that 18-year-old kid that went to jail, that's part of the motivation of, hey, it's trying to make everything right. But even in this career path, in this career space, I will tell you, it's not the easiest. When I, going back to answer Ron's question, how did this all come about? This was never part of the plan, but I think that returning home, helping those kids, giving back to the community, that kind of set the tone for me, because I was communicating with a lot of the college coaches, Joe Salavera, and and those were the coaches that I connected with. Lengi Suyao, that's at Michigan State right now, the D-line coach. Ricky Longo, he's now the D-line coach at UNLV. So it really helped. There's a few other names that those coaches are. Mark Atuaya, he's now the running back coach at Utah. So just being home and being able to connect with some of our Polynesian coaches that were in that realm, it really helped. It really helped. But there was something that during that time when I was coaching back in Samoa, and I'm sure you guys probably faced it during your time, but it's every time a team wins or lose and you jump on that bus and you're going back to your school, and next thing you know, you get stoned. These buses get stoned, and during that time when that happened, when I was coaching, they canceled high school sports, they canceled youth sports. And during that time, I had 3 girls, and and not just 3 girls, but I also had my son growing up, and the same fields that I played on and, carry all these battle scars. And Ron, and you guys can probably relate to that, 20 years or 15 years later, and I was like, man, those things have never changed. It's still the same. Do I really want the same thing for my son? Do I really want the same thing for my daughters? More so, they canceled sports. Because those incidents. So I'm like, okay, so this is all I know. It's trying to help, athletes and also help my kids. So I decided to move my family, and the plan was to go to California, but we made a pit stop in Hawaii, and that's kind of how I ended up coaching at Farrington, and that's kind of how that journey started. But when I got to Hawaii, I would continue to have parents from Samoa reach out and ask, "Hey, we need help. I need you to help my kid." And it I think the Polynesian and the Samoan, me and us, just gravitate around that and just want to continue to help our people, help our kids, help our youth. And so I was like, okay, continue to work with Fieldhouse 100, with the Smart Brothers, and also with Rachel Jennings. So she was also a teacher at Samoana High School. She did a lot of the academic piece. We did that, and so we brought all these kids. We brought all these kids during the summer, and they came and lived with me. All I said to mom and dad, like parents, like, hey, just pay for your kids' fare. Just come to Hawaii, and don't worry, we'll take care of everything. We'll figure it out. And they came, and I took those kids, some of those athletes, to University of Hawaii football camp, and we started what's called the Fa'amarika Tour. And the Fa'amarika Tour was to give student athletes an opportunity. And so we toured. The first year we did that, we toured the Nike camps. We went to Portland State, Oregon State, University of Oregon, University of Hawaii. And I took that first core, of student athletes. And my mentality is, I want to bring the best athletes from American Samoa and take them to all these satellite camps to beat up all these kids and send them back to Samoa. So that way, now all the coaches that want these kids, they go back to Samoa. And they not only recruit these kids, but guess what? They get to recruit all of Samoa. Mm-hmm. So that was the mentality when we did that. And it was awesome. We had Giuliano Falanico from Leone, picked up Michigan, Ole Miss, USC, Washington State. We had Fred Mawingoa from Oregon, BYU, Washington State. And it was awesome, and so I think that was a very successful journey in providing those opportunities for those athletes. And then not too long after that, we did that for 2 years, and then the NCAA shut down satellite camps. And then, so when they shut down satellite camps, well, I just continued to work with the Smart Brothers, and what we did was we just did JUCO camps. So we brought in Arizona Western, we brought in Garden City. So we started bringing in all these different junior colleges, and then we did a satellite camp in Hawaii. And it was just through that journey, like I said, it was never part of the plan. It kind of fell into my lap. So I took all those JUCO coaches and I drove them all around Hawaii. We visited Kahuku, Farrington, just different high schools in Hawaii. And we did a camp, and then all those coaches started interviewing and started offering all these kids. And so it was a great feeling to do that for the student athletes in Hawaii. And then what happened from that is, one of the coaches, his name was Jeff Sims. He returned back to Garden City, Kansas, and my wife and I, like, Hawaii was kind of like getting too expensive for us as a family, and we were going to move to Washington, where my cousin was up there. And 2 weeks before our move, I get a phone call from Randall Cunningham. And Randall's all like, hey, I heard you guys are moving to Washington. And Randall's like, well, guess what? I'm the new head coach at Silverado High School here in Las Vegas. How would you like to come and coach at Silverado and be part of my staff?"
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
And I turned to my wife, so I'm like, "Well, we haven't booked our tickets yet to Washington." So we made the decision right there on that day. All right, we're gonna go to Vegas. So that's kind of how that journey started. Then we went to Vegas, and then the head coach from Garden City, Jeff Sims, he called me and he said, "Hey, I want to offer you a job. I want you to come and be the running back coach here at Garden City, Kansas." And I was really shocked and I didn't know what to say. And I was like, "You know what? I'll call you back." So I hung up the phone and I just spoke to my wife and I told my wife, "Hey, they just offered me a job at Garden City, Kansas. What do you think?" Didn't think anything of it. So I didn't really think anything of it. We made the move to Vegas and I just coached at, Silverado High School, took my kids and enrolled my girls and they started playing club volleyball. And then I took a trip to a coaching convention and then I bump into the head coach again, Jeff Sims. And he pulls me aside like, "Listen, I want to offer you a job. I want you to come to Garden City, Kansas and, come and coach." And when he said that to me, there was one thing I asked him, "Okay, if I take that job, I want you to give me the opportunity to go back to Samoa and recruit kids from Samoa." And coach, he's all like, "Well, that's another piece. You're not only going to coach running backs, but absolutely all those kids that you drove me around the island, Hawaii, I want you to go to Hawaii and recruit all those kids as well." So
This was before the NIL time, right?
yeah,
Or
this
just
is way
coming,
before.
yeah.
This was way before NIL. I
Mhm.
mean, that was non-existent. So I flew back to Vegas, and I sat down with my wife and my kids at the time, and I said to my wife, "You know what? Instead of now trying to go and find scholarship opportunities for our athletes from Samoa, our Polynesian athletes, well, now I'm put in the driver's seat that I can now actually go and offer scholarships." And my wife gave me her blessing, and I jumped in the car and I made about a 18-hour drive to Garden City, Kansas. So I traveled alone and just to go and test out what that opportunity would be like. So to answer your question, Ron, I know it was a long answer, but
Oh, you're
that's kind of how
good.
the journey started.
I like your journey, but you ever been to Kansas prior to that? Was it a culture shock? Like
No,
Kansas?
it was definitely a culture shock. It's got there, it smelled like cow manure. But like I said, I'm truly grateful for that journey. It definitely opened up my eyes. And that very first year, I was able to get about 15 Polynesian athletes from Samoa and Hawaii to Garden City, Kansas, that our first year.
Yeah. I want to follow up on this story, but I also want to acknowledge we have a lot of our comments heating up on. So can we bring some of those questions up or those comments? I think they had some questions for you. So this one is from Professor Hamo. If you don't mind me asking, Coach, what year did you graduate from Samoana? I'm assuming Samoana as in Samoana. Apologies, as I was late to the beginning of the introduction. So he's asking, what year did you graduate?
Yep, I graduated in 1998.
98. There you go. Okay. What else do we have there? It's great that you can share your real life story with the students or athletes so they can take that as a life lesson for themselves as a path or route they may want to think twice about taking. Okay. And we'll take this one here from Professor Hamel. One of the best comments, trying to do everything right. We're going to make mistakes, and that's all right. as that's how we learn. Yep, exactly. And DJ Osmond, malo le fasua boys. Yeah, malo lava le tapoi. Thank you, DJ. Okay.
Man, it's
Just
crazy.
FYI, yeah, I know, Coach, you're following sports too, but some of those who are curious, I can give you a quick score update. Thunder 93, Pacers 81. So for those who are curious about the NBA Finals that is going on, I'm in Oklahoma City. I'm not a Thunder fan, but I'm bandwagon today. Hopefully, we can finish in the last 4 minutes. Let's go Thunder. But I wanted to get back what you were saying a second ago, how that vision you had about going back and getting all that talent from Samoa. I think when what is the Michigan coach? He's back in the NFL now. He's the coach of Niners. Harbaugh, right? So Harbaugh had a similar concept when he left the NFL. He went to Michigan, and that was his first mission, right? He wanted to go recruit the poly kids, and I think he started a whole bunch of camps somewhere in Hawaii. But what you had said, I'm a University of Oklahoma alum, and I think it was around the early 2000s when Oklahoma was sort of like the top of the world. I also solicited an idea to our athletic department. I said, and that was a time when I knew all the high school coaches, and I said, I know all these high school coaches back on the island. If you want, then I can be your side recruiter, and I can reach out. I wanted to also bring that pipeline here to Oklahoma, and it just fell on deaf ears. And I was so frustrated when Harbaugh came out and he did the same thing. And I just thought, man, you're behind the times now, Oklahoma. You could have established that pipeline. But I'm grateful to see your vision come to fruition, because that's taken a big step, and also doing it for our kids back home, just to provide that opportunity that probably didn't exist when you came out. Yeah. So, Ronnie Ron.
No, I think Keiki kind of answered a little bit of it, but you can expand on it too, Keiki, because it seems like you set a standard um of it's almost like I feel like it's a standard of charities. Like it seems like your journey has been taking you to give back. And it's taking you always to give back to our people back home. How has that kind of shaped your identity? And has that always been kind of like the goal for you, was to give back to those who are less fortunate, or for our people back home who just don't see the opportunities yet?
Well, I think it goes back to some of the pioneers that helped shape, the foundation. We had Big Joe that came down. I think the Noga brothers came down. And I might probably missed a few names, but growing up and seeing those things, watching the NFL, all that inspired me. And then when I started to help those kids, I would say I was truly blessed, because I played Division I. I got to see it, got to understand it. And how I looked at it was, wow, I'm so grateful for those things that I've learned, because I can go back home and utilize the skill set, the knowledge, and the wisdom that I've gained. And how I also look at it is, I was that little kid that was hungry and wanted the opportunity, but didn't know how. And I think that that's no difference. And that's how I look at things. That kid, that was me. That I was that kid from, village of Fonkongo. And I would put myself in those kids' shoes, that any kid that I cross path with, that kid is seeking the same thing that 14, 15, 60-year-old Keiki was looking for. But I was blind and didn't understand, didn't have somebody to help pivot, navigate. And that's kind of how I look at it. That's how I look at it now. And I'm truly grateful for the wisdom and being in this space that I can go back and help those student athletes. But the biggest thing is what I look at is I don't blame mom. I don't blame dad. I also don't blame the government, because at one point I had shared some of these visions when I went home with the government. And the reason why I don't blame anybody is because the biggest thing is rules are always changing. The NCAA is always changing. Compliance is always changing. And I think the biggest thing is just being able to educate our people. It's being able to equip our people with the process and what it takes. So I don't, like I said, mom, dad, whoever it may be, it's just being able to equip our people with the right step, the process, so that way it can help them, give them some sort of guideline.
Right. Just give them some good awareness, right? Just to understand what the process is. Right.
Yep.
I like how you like everything that you're doing is sort of like it's like it builds up on each other. And I want to transition into the next step. And we can always come back to the college level, but you also did the NFL International Pathway Program, but you talked about the rules that you have to understand coming from high school to college. Now you're dealing with all the NCAA rules, and then now it's the NIL thing. But then now you're also grooming, perhaps the same students you brought to the college level, getting them into at the professional level. Can you share some of that transition, explain to our audience what the NFL International Pathway Program is and just sort of relate it to like the college experience that you were mentioning?
So the Pathway Program, it started back in 2017.
Uh-huh.
And that kind of also fell in my lap. I've gone to like the NFL. Well, let me back up. That kind of fell in my lap because what happened was when I started to help kids from American Samoa and Hawaii and our Polynesian athletes and whatnot, I started to make phone calls and looked at evaluated film of international athletes. And when I spoke to an offensive tackle from England, and understanding his name was Bamadeli Olaseni. He was 6'9", 330-pound athlete that was just playing club football in England. And when I got on the phone with him and he kind of shared his story, it's football is very limited here, pads and the resources and things like that. And everything that he was saying, I was just thinking to myself, wow, it's the same thing that a kid back in Samoa goes through.
Right.
And this kid, all the way on the other side of the world, is hungry for the same thing. So I brought his film to a head coach, like, hey, I have this kid from England that wants to come down. And boom, we offer him a scholarship. He comes in. And that kind of started the pipeline. And like, you know what? I'm going to start recruiting kids from international kids. So we started recruiting kids from Australia, New Zealand, England, Germany, Netherlands, Canada, all the way down to trying to recruit athletes from Africa. And every kid that I spoke to all shared a similar story. We don't have football here in our country. We are limited resources. We're hungry. We want to come to America, of the land of, milk and honey, to play and chase the American dream and play American football. So I started to bring all these international athletes. And the first year we were there, we won the national championship. And the core of that group was kids from our Polynesian athletes. And one of them became an All-American.
Wow.
And his name is Jamie Tango. and he graduated from Samoa, FYI.
There you go.
But yeah, he became an All-American, and he helped us win a national championship. But through that time, and kind of accelerate, back to answering your question, when I went to the NFL Combine and connected with a few scouts there, it's like, hey, we have this program, the NFL IPP program, but we're looking for somebody that has international background and also in the South Pacific region. So I said, okay. So I stayed in touch with them, and then in 2019, they called me, hey, we want to fly you in to IMG and just to see our whole operation. So I fly into IMG, see the whole operation, and they say, hey, there's going to be some opportunities here. We'll just continue to stay in touch, which I did. Fast forward to 2020, I was the running back coach at Missouri Southern. When COVID hit and everything, I decided to resign from my job. And and at that time, my wife and kids moved back to Samoa. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to resign from my job. I'm going to go back to Samoa and just figure it out. So I resigned, head to Hawaii, and our borders were closed, so I couldn't even go to Samoa. But the NFL called and like, hey, we have a position, a remote position here, and we want you to be the scout for the Oceania region, and also scout Asia, and then just whatever you have connections to, just use your network to find us the best athletes. So I literally was just working remotely from Hawaii, just scouting talent from all over the world, a lot of virtual meetings. And then we had our first international combine in Europe. So we flew to Europe, did the combine, and we brought in the best 100 athletes from all over the world that we were able to identify during that time. And from that core 100, I think about maybe 15 to 20 of those athletes was invited to the NFL International Player Pathway Program. And so that's how that came about, and they go to IMG, they train and prepare for the combine.
Okay. I was going to ask, how did they do their combine? So I guess they got filtered to IMG. Huh.
Yeah. So they go to IMG, they train, and then from IMG, then they'll get invited to the NFL combine, or they'll go and participate with one of the local universities, whether it be UCF, USF. So that's kind of how that structure went about.
No, it's great to see that pipeline. I know a lot of those international students are just very grateful to have someone at least open that opportunity to them that didn't exist. So not only benefiting us Samoan kids, but just international wide.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot don't know this, but at the time, American Samoa didn't qualify. So I was fighting for American Samoa during that time. And they were like, well, American Samoa is a U.S. territory, so
I see.
You guys don't qualify for the program. And I was all like, listen, I know you guys say just because we have the American tag to Samoa, like, we still operate, our football programs, like, we're still behind.
Right.
Like, our helmets are outdated, our pads are outdated, are all outdated. Like, it wouldn't be compliant to any of the high school systems here in American Samoa. Here in the U.S. And I'm like, been fighting, like telling them, listen, you guys need to include American Samoa. into the IPP program. So in 2024, after kind of keep tugging at them, they approved and included American Samoa into the IPP program. So
Nice.
everybody, and if you're listening to this, if you're from American Samoa, born and raised, feel free to hit me up. You know, I definitely, I can't make any promises, but I can definitely steer your name towards the program, because I continue to stay in touch with some of the guys at the headquarters, that they're always looking for talent.
Yeah. And I also want to extend, to our other, Pacific Islands, not just the Polynesians, but, if you feel your kid, sort of falls under this umbrella, at least you have a voice or someone who understands everything, to get your kid into college or even at the next level if need be. So this is your guy. Before we go back to you, Ron, we just want to cover some of our comments here popping up. With the NCAA rules, compliance and regulations always changing, is it easier now to recruit? Can you pop that up again, please? Is it easier now to recruit compared to 5 years ago or 20? It's DJ Ozum. Awesome.
Is it easier? Oh, sorry, can you repeat the question?
Is it easier now to recruit compared to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or 20 years ago with all the NCAA rules changing?
I think that's a good question. I would say it's yes and no. And the reason why I say yes and no, because there's the transfer portal, there's NIL, and I feel that has pushed recruiting for kids from American Samoa back a little bit. Because now when college coaches are recruiting, do I go to, and it backs to your question as far as you were pushing for Oklahoma coaches to go over there. So you guys got to think there's only 2 flights to Samoa. So they got to jump on that Monday flight and spend probably the whole week and jump back on that Thursday flight. Well, it also counts towards the recruiting days. So we're only allocated a certain amount of days. So that would also take away. So those are the things you factor. And now, is it really worth, I'm going to spend $3,000 to $5,000 to go to a place that's unknown? That's what makes it harder. And even all the way down to our kids, when they make their highlight film, they like to do the slow motion and all those things and rewind and slow motion again. Well, that's awesome for, all the hype and everything. But how does a coach really know if you're really running full speed?
Yeah, that's more of a fan's view, right?
Correct. And the thing is, the football back on the island is a question mark, because coaches don't understand like the level. Is it grassroots level? Is it 5A or is it 6A or it's a question mark. And a lot of them, because of the question mark, some of them are not willing to gamble. But when you have Joe Salavea, Sean Nua, and some of these coaches, including myself, that understand the hidden gems that are out there, we are willing to roll the dice. We are willing to go out there and recruit those kids, because we understand the talent level that's out there. But again, because of now the inclusion of transfer portal, this is kind of what pushes those kids out back a little bit, because you figure the football in Samoa is unknown as far as the level of competition. And as far as what type of nutrition, what type of weight training they're getting, these are all things and stuff that I know, but certain coaches across the country, do they understand these things? And for these questions, these coaches, that it's those things are question marks. So they're like, well, why should I go to Samoa and recruit an undeveloped kid, but I can just go to a portal to a kid that spent 4 years at a program. He's already got nutrition. He's been in the weight room. He understands what it's like to be at a 4-year institution. So that's what we're battling. Our kids from Samoa are now battling kids that are at a 4-year program that has all these resources available to them.
Yeah, it's trying to outweigh that risk of,
Correct.
It comes with a cost, and it doesn't help that the recruiting days are now added. You're stuck on island, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Man, that's crazy. So you say there is a gap between the recruitment process of those who are in the States versus those back home in American Samoa. What are your top 3 fixes to bridge that gap in the recruitment process for our people back home? I know there's more, but what would be your top 3 fixes to kind of bridge the gap in this process?
To be honest with you, that's something that I'm still trying to navigate through my mind. What would be the best way? I know that Pooch, Kevin, they transitioned from head coaches to now running the athletic program for the whole island, and they've done a great job. And also just now purchasing Huddle. I think that's a great step. And my hat goes off to Department of DOE and to Kevin and Pooch, just being able to bring that platform to all the coaches. Now, I think the biggest thing is it's how do they maximize that? How do they maximize putting together highlights, putting together film? Because I'll be honest with you, when the Smart Brothers, back then when I was helping the Smart Brothers, they purchased Huddle. And between the Smart Brothers and myself, like, we were cutting up film. We were making highlight films for all the kids from back in Samoa. So I think it's great that they were able to bring that back, that platform back to the high schools. And also, I've also saw that they've included female athletes. And I think that's great. Now it's just a matter of being able to put in the time, the work, and the effort. And the thing that parents need to understand, that it's a full-time job. And I've been in Samoa. I coached at the youth level. I coached the high school level. Like, all these things, it's the labor of love. Like, it's literally labor of love. And it's having to, use your own money when you have to also take care of your family. It's labor of love, and doing those things and being able to do certain things, that these things they're not free. And my hat goes off to all the coaches at all levels back in American Samoa, because I understand that process, and we do that out of love and alofa, and that even means giving up, giving up a meal, so that way you can take care of a family and taking care of a kid's highlight. That's what our families, I know it's a very sensitive matter, but just need to understand that the coaches back home, they don't get paid to do it. It's
Right.
out of love. It's out of alofa.
And they're doing their best. You got so many athletes, and even just doing one athlete, it's time consuming. And if you think you have 5 stars, on your team, how do you equalize, that time on each individual? Perhaps some
Absolutely.
clinics, maybe some clinics for the coaches or clinics for the parents. Teach them how to make their own videos. Their kids are good at TikTok. Maybe we can figure something out for them.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I will be traveling to Samoa this week, and so my goal is to meet with some of our local coaches and try to do the best that I can within my means to kind of help them and answer any questions for them once I'm on island.
Yeah. We just hit an hour now, but I want to make sure that we cover your current position. So you now got a GM position with the University of Miami, January, right? January of this year. So late congrats on the new position. But for our viewers, we've heard this term GM, of sports operations. Can you break it down? What exactly is the role of a GM?
Absolutely. I just want to correct you, Arlington, and I was a GM at University of Hawaii.
Okay, University of
So
Hawaii.
my yep, and my role now here at University of Miami is in personnel and NIL engagement.
Okay.
I think that to answer your question as far as general manager, what it takes, every program, that role is different. Okay, every program, that role is different. But to kind of give you a kind of a general answer as far as when I did that role, it was roster management, evaluating the talent, and also it's making sure that we had the right athlete that fit into our scheme. And it was also NIL engagement. It was working together with the collective. And I'm just speaking on what I did previously, not here in Miami, but it's working on contracts, working with collectives, and making sure that what those contracts look like. But it was also outside of that, it was also professional development, pro liaison. It was academic liaison. It was class checks. It was on-board housing. So I mean, you get to wear a lot of hats, and no job is too big or too small. You kind of have to be a Swiss Army knife, just at certain levels. Now that I'm here at University of Miami, like, all the responsibilities, all those roles have been eliminated, and now it's just evaluating talent and trying to find the best athlete and see how those athletes fit into our scheme.
Walk us through how did you have a relationship with coach head coach in Miami prior to this, when they reached out to you?
I did, but I think because I've been in this profession at the very early years of my career, there's this thing that they have every year. It's called the coaching convention. So when I was staying in Samoa, I would get like a booklet of transcripts and profile of a lot of our kids from Samoa, and I would go to the coaching convention, and I didn't know any of those coaches there, but I see a coach with an LSU shirt on. I see a coach with Alabama. It didn't matter if you were Nick Saban, who it was. I was just handing, hey, listen, you want to recruit Samoa? Here you go. Here's prospect sheet. Here's the profile sheet. Here's their transcripts. You want to recruit kids from Samoa? I just went to every coach and just networked. And so, you want to recruit Samoa? Here's a kid. Here's transcripts. Here's all these things. And so I think just through that, through satellite camps, through a lot of our Polynesian coaches, that were in the game at the time. It was Joe Salavea, it was Lengi Soyanoa, Ricky Longo, Mark Atuaya, and just being able to kind of gravitate around them and like, hey, they kind of help set the pathway and made things easier. Like, hey, I know this coach. Well, here we go. So that's kind of how I kind of built that that relationship with a lot of coaches, even including the head coach at well, some of these coaches were my teammates. So Josh Heupel, who's the head coach at University of Tennessee,
Mm.
He was my teammate back in the days.
That's right. Before he transferred to OU.
Yeah. So I played with him at Snow College.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, so
But yeah, then
he won the national championship at OU.
absolutely. So I'll exchange text messages with Heupel here and there, and for me and during my time when I was at Garden City, I guess that was the beauty of it. When I had all those Polynesian athletes at Garden City, we won the national championship. We won conference. We had so many coaches that came through to recruit our athletes. Billy Napier, before he was the head coach at Florida, I still have all those contacts of all these coaches that came to Garden City back in the days, and I still communicate with a lot of those coaches. And I think just through time, I was able to kind of accumulate, all this these numbers and being able to connect with all these coaches. So I know that was a long answer, but
No,
hope
I
I'm trying to
appreciate
answer
that.
your
And just
question.
all the names you mentioned, I just appreciate that and just shows how you're connected to everyone. And that's the point I'm trying to make across to people who are listening, some people will say, like, question the credibility, but we have all that proven, your works have proven, and people already recognize you for all the work. So I just wanted to highlight that so people will know this guy knows this stuff. He put in the work. So appreciate you sharing that with us.
Hell yeah. I know Miami. I mean, it's such a, it's such a big name with a lot of history and such a strong brand. How do you see that expanding in its reach to, the Polynesian pipeline or the Polynesian athletes?
Well, I think it started with, I think Joe was here. I know Joe has left. He's now the associate head coach at Arizona. I
Mm.
think it helped when he came out here, with, help with the transition of the Moa brothers that ended up here. And then we had another kid, SJ Alafaituli, that he's here now. So it's that kind of really helped kind of pave the way. And uh, trust me, there's so many talented kids out there, and we're always evaluating kids, um, and Polynesian kids is definitely something that we want to kind of continue to recruit those kids. And I think that we just had some of these camps. We had a few Polynesian kids that came out here to try out, and it's trying to recruit them, and it's finding the closest kid that's within radius, that we'd be able to get. And I think it's so tough because of the evaluation process, and it's understanding the critical factors that fits into our scheme. It's not just the critical factors, but it's also what does the measurables look like? What does the numbers look like? And that's real.
Right.
And I want our our coaches and our student athletes and families back in American Samoa to know that it is real, that it's not that I don't want those kids, but when we're saying, hey, we want this kid, what are his numbers look like? What does his measurables look like?
Mm.
And so when we have numbers that are verified and that are real, and then you have a kid from Samoa or wherever they may be that are talented, well, how do we know those kids' numbers are real? How do we know that kid really runs, a 4.5 or a 4.4? How do we know a kid runs a 10.79? So when these things are verified and available to the programs versus a kid from Samoa that doesn't have those verified numbers, like, it makes it very hard.
And those are certified numbers, I'm assuming, from some official, not just some random coach measuring and sending in numbers, right?
100%. And I kind of sit back and kind of take a deep thought to this, because when I was at Hawaii, it was awesome, because that was backyard. American Samoa was a backyard. Boom, popped in. Hey, we get this kid.
Mm.
And we had Lester Langafuaina, and he played safety out of Samoa.
Wow.
And when I met with Lester and the dad, I was like, Lester, understand this. You're going to be a defensive end. and I said, Lester, you're going to be a defensive end. Trust me, you're going to be a outside linebacker, rush end. And like, oh, okay, coach. And next thing you know, we offered Lester a scholarship, because I was fighting for Lester. And I trust you, like, believe me, the film Lester had on YouTube of him playing safety, I'm like, man, it's, like, it was like one of those things. It was unknown, but I said to the coach, listen, just watch the film. Don't look at how bad the highlight and everything was put together, but just look at his athletic ability. Look at how he runs, look how he moves, look how he kind of hits. Just, and just look at him. Yeah, he's playing safety, but he's going to be a linebacker. He's going to be a defensive end.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of stood on the table, fought for Lester, and next thing you know, they're like, all right, we're going to offer him a scholarship. So we offer Lester a scholarship. He comes to Hawaii, and we moved him to safety, and they were like, okay. So that like, when those kids come from Samoa, like, that helps and they succeed. It helps me out to keep pounding the table for them.
Right.
And when those kids come, I like, listen, and I tell Lester this, I tell Dean this, any kid from Samoa, like, listen, your success helps the next kid be the rock.
Exactly.
And that's what I tell them, man. I tell them, like, it's not about Tafuna. It's not about Leone. It's not about Samoana. Understand, your success, you are helping make it so much easier for me to go back to the islands to recruit and find the next Lester, find the next Fred Mauingoa, the next Giuliano Falenico. That's what you're doing. You're making my job easier.
Do we not have a system that will allow our people back home to have, let's just say, verified numbers or measurements in terms of, highlights and their speed and what they've done the last 4, 3, or 2 years? Do we not have something legitimate like that back home?
Not that I am aware of. But I want you to think about this. Even if we did, does every college program know who's running the system? Can they trust those verified numbers? Can they be trusted?
Yeah.
And it's not that they don't trust them. It's just that they don't know who they are.
Now, but to Ron's point, maybe over time, right? Establish something. And if the numbers somehow, the percentage-wise proves, it's effective at the next level, I guess it's going to have to take time, but, it wouldn't hurt to introduce it. But if the numbers keep coming out there and they're not meeting up to par, then, it puts our credibility into suspect, and it will hurt Samoans overall. I mean, at least the American Samoa kids. So there is a danger to it.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not gonna, like I said, it's anybody can do it from American Samoa. It's just that whoever is receiving the information, now they're just going to have to kind of make their own decision.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
get it. It's almost like I'm going to invest in this kid halfway around the world. Is it legit? Is it valid? You know?
It brings up an interesting point, tying back to the NFL. We always hear, I forget what the percentage number, we always hear Samoans have a certain high percentage rate of making to the NFL comparing to any other, non-Samoan kid. Explain that to me, that data, that success rate as Samoan making to the NFL compared to any other race. What is your
well,
understanding of that?
That data came from what 60 Minute or ESPN that came down. So I really don't want to speak on something that I'm not fully kind of aware of, but I think it was ESPN or somebody that came down and did the study on that. So that's kind of a success rate. But to your point, I do the best that I can, and it might not be 100% accurate, but what I can tell you, pre transfer portal era, okay, before transfer portal era, that there was about 3 to 5 student athletes from American Samoa that received Division I scholarships. Post transfer portal era, there's only been one almost every year. Okay. And I think this year was probably by far the highest that it jumped. It jumped to 3. I think that was Anthony Faivai from Leone, Malcolm Bolu Jr. from Tafuna, and then I think there was another kid, Moalele, from Tafuna High School. So those are the 3 that got Division I scholarships for this class. I could be wrong, but that's kind of, I'm trying to do the best that I can. I kind of keep track of how our athletes from Samoa are doing. But I do believe that those are the 3 this year through the transfer portal era that's gotten scholarships, and that's been the most.
Yeah. I'm going to go off just off script here a bit. The work that Kurt Tokfasai was doing, can you share about his work?
Absolutely, man. I love Kurt. Kurt has done. He's another Uso man that he's a pioneer. He does an awesome job when he was the head coach at New Mexico Military, and every time I've gone down and I visit Kurt and sat in his office and and got to kind of talk about our times back in Samoa and just kind of his success and where he's at. But Kurt has done a tremendous job also giving our student athletes an opportunity. Understanding that just he's cut from the same cloth, and he knows what all the talent is all about back on the islands. And I think him transitioning from New Mexico Military and now being the head coach at New Mexico Highland University, he's done a tremendous job returning home and giving back and signing some of our local kids. So definitely, Kurt has his own story, man. So it's hopefully that you guys will be able to have an opportunity to kind of pull him on the podcast.
There you go, Leo. So we will work Kurt into our podcast.
So where do you call home now? Is it just Miami, or are you still traveling around? Or
sorry, can you say one more time?
So where do you call home now?
You know what? Miami's home. Miami's home. And not a lot of people know this, but my wife and my kids still live in they live in Samoa right
Mm.
now. And we moved back to Samoa in 2019. And the big piece was that is so we also took care of my father-in-law, and he was bedridden. And throughout this journey, when I took this coaching career journey, we moved all over the place. So we moved probably like 10 times. And when I got the job to go to Delaware State, it was just too big of a move to not only move our whole family, but also my father-in-law that was bedridden at the time. And my wife and I kind of recognized that and were like, if anything happened and we moved to Delaware, it would be a long trip back to Samoa. But at the same time, my father-in-law wanted to return home. So my wife and I, we kind of started saving, and we thought, you know what, we're gonna honor his wishes, and we just kind of saved up, and we decided, hey, my wife and kids will go back to Samoa, and I'll just stay out in Missouri at the time, and just kind of ride out this career path. And then when I got the job to Hawaii, it was an easy transition. Like, hey, Samoa, Hawaii, kind of travel back and forth. And then when this Miami job came about, my wife and I sat down, like, we don't want to continue moving. We don't want to do this. So let's just find home base, and we'll just, set home base, and we'll figure that out. And we figure, you know what, when everything's said and done, when I decide to retire or step away from this career path, we agreed Samoa would be home base for us. So that's the reason why she's there, and I'll navigate between Miami and Samoa, and it's not, it's tough, but we make it work.
Right, right. Man, it sounds like your journey. It talks so much about, and it instills a lot of motivation, dedication, and inspiration. And it sounds like there's so much sacrifice involved in that. Um, for those of us who are inspired, who and are motivated by that, would you mind talking a little bit about, the sacrifices that you have to take to fulfill this journey that you're on?
Um,
Sorry,
definitely a lot
I
of
hate to put you on the spot, bro.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's missing a lot of birthdays, missing a lot of family time, it's not being a father at times, and if I'm going to Samoa for 3 weeks, well, I get to be a father for 3 weeks, and that face to face. Social media, I guess the internet and FaceTime helps a lot, kind of bridge the gap. There's a lot of moments of um, you see your kids cry, and it's kind of breakdown and things like that, but we do the best that we can to make it work, and I also, I deep dive myself into my work, and sometimes I don't come home. Sometimes I'll sleep in the office, or sometimes I don't come home because I have no family to come to. And the thought process is, if I'm not going to come home, there's no family. Well, I'm gonna honor my wife, honor my kids by dedicating all my efforts into my job, to being the best evaluator, to be the best recruiter, to be the best whatever job responsibility that is given to me. I'm going to be the best at it and honor my family in that aspect.
I just wanted to say hello to the family. Perhaps they're, viewing from Samoa. So shout out to the family. And it's great to hear, the sacrifice that the dad is doing, the husband is doing. But if we can bring up the question, it was relatable to what Ron had just mentioned. It had a question about how do you deal with stress, and I thought, I wanted to get the right opportunity to ask that question. How's your stress levels throughout your professional career, especially now in the current position? What do you do to mitigate that?
Um, I guess just continue to dive into my work. Keep me busy. Keep me away from stress. It's just going back into my work and keeping myself busy. Um, Sometimes, or if I need to get in the car and just drive and just kind of listen to my Samoan music. That really helps. It takes my mind off of things, and it helps at ease, and I think that really helps out a lot, and that kind of calms me down.
Yeah.
And how would you,
Coach,
so what would you, how would you recruit 18-year-old Misipeka from high school from in Samoa? How would you recruit him?
To tell you the truth, man, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't even recruit him. Well, I'm just being honest with you, man. It's it's that's being brutally honest. I mean, I was 18 yards short of rushing for 1,000 yards. I was ASHA high school player of the year, 6-time nominated. I was that kid. But knowing all the things I know now, like I wouldn't even have a chance. To even survive out here. And I think it all goes back to it. And I've talked to some of the athletes that I've helped that are now at the collegiate level. And we kind of laugh and joke about, like, it's like I talked to Kiko Mawingoa. He got
mm,
drafted from the Jets. And I said, Kiko, so talk me through this. What do you think, if you would help accelerate and help development back in American Samoa? And some of the things Kiko would say, well, I think that it's understanding the basics of schemes, understanding like coverages, understanding hashes, understanding structure of practices. And again, I'm going to say this: everything that Coach Momoa, Elia Savali, and Dr. Atul, Simon Mangale, Pepine Lauvao taught me back in the day, it was the right technique, it was the right play, it was the right thing, because that's how they were taught. And that's no different from what Kevin, Oakland Salavea, and Pooch, how they taught those kids back at Tafuna High School and Whangaitua. It was the right way because that's how they were taught. And now we just step into the fold and into the whole at the collegiate level. Well, guess what? These coaches are coaching us the best way what they were taught. It was just different. The speed is a lot faster.
mm-hmm.
Certain things are, that wasn't available, and that's what I'm saying. It's these things are not available to our people, to our coaches back on the islands, because they taught us the best thing that they knew how, what they were taught. And it's just that we're here at a whole nother level. Things are just a lot faster. And I think, and understanding these things, and I go back to, that's like Lester, Giuliano Falinico. They were freakish athletes. They did everything off of raw talent. The 4 and 5-star athlete that we're evaluating, guess what they get? They get all the protein. They get all the proper weight room. They get all the proper training. They get all the resources. But when I see Giuliano, Benet Pavihi, some of our athletes from back home, they are equally as talented without those resources.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm evaluating some of these athletes, a 4 or 5-star athlete may be here, but a kid from Samoa can probably equal their talent without those resources. And so when I'm sitting and I'm on the table, when I'm banging on the table for some of these kids, they're like, listen, just imagine if this kid from Samoa had weight room training, the proper nutrition, the protein and everything. This kid, 5-star or 4 or 5-star, has hit their max. The kid from Samoa hasn't hit their peak yet because they haven't gotten all the resources. Yeah, this kid may be good now, but just imagine if we equip this kid. He's going to oversee, the talent level.
Right.
And that's kind of how I try to, it's being honest. And it's being honest and just say we have the numbers to back it up. But the day and age that we live in, and that's what I'm saying is an ugly business, that it's a win now mentality. If not, you get fired.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the other piece to it as well. It's our families back home need to understand. Yeah, I love my people and I want to help our people, but I can also get fired if I don't bring the talent, because the day and age we're in now, it's a win now.
So, Coach, okay, there, yeah, the shout out. Can you put that up again? Sorry about that. Thank you, Pulse of Polynesia. I love you, Keiki. Keep up the amazing work you do. 2
Mhm.
feet.
Yeah. Oops. Hello.
There was so much we
That's
wanted
all.
to cover, and I know you got a tight schedule. You have to catch. You're on the go. I just want to give you, these last couple of minutes. If there's an area that we didn't cover, in our questionnaire, I'm gonna give you, these moments for you to, share any thoughts that you wanted to cover that perhaps we didn't, touch on.
Shoot, I there really isn't. I can't really think of anything.
Okay, then we have a few to cover.
Yeah, go.
Ron,
No, like I said,
Ron,
like don't worry about time, because I have a 5-hour flight. I can sleep on the flight.
okay. So we want to get into the. We talked about this earlier before you jumped on the entertainment deal, The Rock, the movies. Share some of that story. Yeah, and your coaching were, that's his alma mater, right? The Rock. So, any experience that has he shown up since you've been there?
Um, he hasn't showed up yet, but I can tell you that our locker room is named after The Rock, and he does provide I guess NIL through his company, the Papatui. So he sends a lot of products back to the university. And I think he had a movie, one of these movie premieres. I think it was a Moana 2 that came out, that he had it, nearby the located university or whatnot. I wasn't around when they had it, but those are some of the things that that has happened during the 6 months I was here.
Yeah, Ron, okay, mi ka wo free flow ka ko wo mo ya ka wo.
Man, you miss any food from back home? Being out there in Miami?
Oh, well, I think all the food I miss will give me gout. So
Damn. So what's the biggest thing you kind of miss of from back home?
I think what I miss back home is just the way of life, just the pace, and being here in Miami. It's everything's on steroids. It's go 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 go. Um, you're at the stoplight. It's red. The minute it turns green, you have people beeping their horn, like literally. If that was the 18-year-old me, I would probably jump out of the car and you know and said something to them. And I'm just so glad that I'm a lot older, a lot wiser, and I can just like, hey, it's that's how they do it here in Miami. You just gotta keep trucking away.
Yeah. It's sort of like LA, right? Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, we have that out here. I mean, you know what? This is very funny. I went to Walmart, and guess what I found in the fruit and vegetable stands at Walmart?
Spam.
Taro.
Oh,
Oh,
Taro, breadfruit, and I'm like, what? I was so shocked.
I'm assuming it's the Caribbean folks, right? Perhaps they share the same.
You know what? I believe so. I believe
Yeah.
so. And so it's awesome to see that here. And then we go over the generic bisupo, the one with the key where you have to twist.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the closest we have to bisupo out here.
Yeah. You get eat any gator yet? Been out there? Have you tried it?
No, I have not. I have not. It's for those that know our head coach Mario Cristobal. He is a grinder. And so a lot of my time and my days are spent in the office. And I mean, like I said, I shared with you guys the last 72 hours with recruiting. It's been catering to families and campus tours and just showing them what Miami's all about, transitioning from that straight into camps, so just trying to balance that schedule out. And literally, when Leaso had reached out, like, Leaso, sorry, I forgot I had a camp, in my schedule that it was just trying to squeeze this in, and wasn't too sure when camp was finishing, and all the way down to trying to pack and get ready for my flight to Samoa.
that's
So it
a
says if
crazy
Pulse of
schedule,
Polynesia
man.
folks or coach needs a place to crash in San Antonio, let me know. I'll appreciate that. And coach, if you're down there in San Antonio, you got a place to stay.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it very much. I would give any advice to anybody that wants to be in this profession. I would say it's not a tough it's a very tough profession to get in. And I'm grateful for a few coaches that I'm able to lean on, because there is times where, I would talk to my wife or doubt myself early on in this profession, and between my wife and I, we said, hey, that we're going to give this career 5 years and see where it takes us. And one of those coaches that I would call and lean on was Coach Lengi Sawinoa, who's now the D-line coach at Michigan State. And I'll call Lengi and I'll tell Lengi that, man, is it really supposed to be this tough to try and climb the ladder in this profession? And Lengy's like, yeah, it's tough. And Lengy would tell me stories, and forgive me, Lengy, I know you're on top of the mountain now, but Lengy, like, yeah, it's having to stay in on recruiting trips. It's sleeping in the car and having to take care of his family, in those situations in the middle of nowhere. And I think I'm grateful for some of our Polynesia coaches that are in this space, because I could always call them and ask them to tell me about their story. And they will tell me about their early struggles, you know, in the profession. And that really helped me to stay patient and you know, and kind of just keep grinding away. You know, my first job when I was at Garden City, I literally stayed in a room and stayed and I just got a mattress and just stayed in the mattress, and I shared the house with somebody else, and just said to myself, like, you know, if this is the process, as this is what's supposed to take, then hey, this so be it. You know, whatever money I had at the time, I sent it to my wife and kids, and you know, and that was take care of them first and don't worry about me. I'll worry about myself later. And so it all goes back to what you're saying, that you know it is a tough journey. And I continue to stay in touch with some of the kids that I've helped, and some of those kids just recently. Well, it's one invited me to his wedding, which I can't make because I'm going to Samoa, and the other one just got married, and he's now I think a graduate assistant at Missouri Southern.
Mm.
So I think those are some of the feel good stories of some of our kids and some of our people that you know have left the islands. And you have Giuliano Falanico, he's playing professional right now in the CFL, you know. Um, so I think there is a space, you know, in this profession. It's just understanding what you're getting into. What I tell people trying to get into spaces, there's three things and stuff that I feel that would help you in this profession. It's hard work. It's your name. If your last name is Deion Sanders, you know, it's Sanders, or you know that you play the NFL and there's some sort of connection, that's your foot in the door. And then it's your network. That's your foot in the door. Well, I didn't have that last name. I didn't have the network. You know, I had hard work, and some of those things that you know you're going to have to put in the hard work. I think the other kid, I can't remember his name. I think it was Ben Langford. Just recently, I think he was an assistant coach, linebackers coach for Kirk out at New Mexico Highland University.
Mm.
Well, I think just recently I saw a post. He just got hired as an NFL scout for I don't know what team, but I saw a post. So I think um, you know that's hats off to him. You know, he's definitely setting you know a trend
Right.
for some of our you know our people that are trying to climb the ladder in this profession.
Te lava naila, naila says matango fie le fa so. Yeah, of te lava ya naila le tapwai. So no, there's a lot of great things, and I think you mentioned Lengy, if I'm correct. I think Lengy's his younger brother is Levi. Levius, we all know. So I know there's some relationship there.
Yep.
Giuliano, I met him when he was playing with USC down at the Texas game. Yeah, like what you said, you know, not to say it in a negative way, but I would say like a freak of nature is how I would describe the kid. Just raw talent. Um, yeah, and standing beside him. What's unique about these Samoan kids is the ferocity that they play with. It doesn't really match the humbleness after the game. So after the game, it's just the humility that they have, the fa'aloalo that you get from these kids, and I think that plays a lot of importance in what you guys do. I really appreciate all the networking that you guys do, and connecting back to just all the poly kids. There's a girl here at OU who does a similar role as you do. She came from USC, and to take that position here at the University of Oklahoma and still continue that network with all the poly kids is such a remarkable effort. And I'm glad that you came on, because it broadens our perspective of all the work that goes in. And like what you said, it's not something easy, and it's stressful. Yeah, you're away from your family, and for those who think, "Oh yeah, I could just jump in and do it," you have to have the work ethics to do it. But in addition to that, you also bring a lot of experience. So it's not just like, you know, a name. You bring a lot of the hard work into all of this. Before we go any further, we're getting close to the top of the hour. Just wanted to again give you thanks for finding the time, in your schedule, as busy as you are, even this small hour or two, to share with not just here in the States, but there's a lot of poly folks who tune in from across the Pacific. And again, like Coach said, that's what he's here for, to take those calls. So, Coach, any last words to all our poly folks who are viewing before I turn it over to Uso Ronnie Ron?
No, I mean, it's you've kind of already echoed, that segment that any family that have any questions, they can reach out to you guys to get a hold of me, or feel free just to reach out to me directly, without getting to any personal specific of things, and I'll keep it general. For Polynesian families, especially those that are on the islands, that whether it be American Samoa, Samoa, Tonga, Fiji, that I want them to understand that there is an opportunity for these athletes to take care of their families. There is, and it's real, and that's in the NIL space, and without getting into specifics, I've seen firsthand family or kids, retired parents back home from Samoa that are, that are blue collar families. And, when you see that firsthand, like it's a great feeling, because that's what keeps me going. That I know there's many kids out there back on the islands that can do that for their families. It's just their athletic ability, and it's just being able to educate the families, and being able to put them in the right space to do that, because I've seen it firsthand. There are so many kids back home in American Samoa, or back on the islands, that are long limb body types that are walking around that can do that. But it's just a matter of being able to educate families back home on what's available to them, and being able to educate leaders back home on this world and this space, because it is real. And whether they're on board or they're off board, just know that the train doesn't stop. Because I've seen it firsthand, what it has done for some of our families back in Samoa. I see what it's doing for some of the families here in the U.S., in the mainland, from low poverty areas, that they get to take care of their families. So just know that space is real. It's just a matter of educating families of where things are at in this day and age of the NIL.
No, that's a great message.
Thanks again for sharing, Coach.
Great message,
Uso
brother.
Ron?
No, I just want to say, man, I thank you and I appreciate you for all the work you're doing and that you continue to do for our people back home. I mean, I hope all the blessings come to you, my brother, to you and your family. And, good luck and God bless you on your journey moving forward.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And thank you again. Thank you again for letting me be part of the platform. I do want to send a shout out to all the coaches out there, especially coaches that are back on the islands. I was in you guys' shoes as well, and so I know the hardships and things that we go through and that you guys go through back on the islands. Um, it's I hope that my success is also your success because I'm cut from the same cloth. Growing up in Samoa, coaching at AYF, coaching high school ball back in Samoa, that I'm always here to help and answer any questions, and it's all about trying to help that brotherhood and you guys succeeded back on the islands. I also want to send a shout out to, if you guys don't mind, to my wife,
Mm.
Tufi, my kids, and just appreciate them just for allowing me to be out here and to be in this space without their success. I mean, their support, I wouldn't be in the situation that I am today. So I'm truly grateful for my wife, kids, and my families my mom back in Samoa and Hawaii. And then I also want to thank all the families that I had the opportunity to recruit their boys, and whether they came to where I was at or not. I thank those families for trusting me and just giving me the opportunity. I always talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and some of my stories. And I do want to say this, that there is times that I don't call Samoa on some of these kids, you know, that I didn't want to make that phone call, and it was one of those things where I had to solve the problem. So mom and dad wouldn't get a phone call from me, but just know that did the best that I can between myself and our coaching staff. But we love and I appreciate the families that gave me that opportunity to trust their kids under my watch.
Thanks again, Coach. I just got a message. There's one more question we want to throw in here. Go ahead and bring that question up. Okay, what's your advice to a passionate junior who's got a good arm but has bad grades? Also, he plays 8-man tackle due to small school. Asking for a friend and clearing his throat.
Just trying to understand. Did he say what grade the student is at?
Junior.
Junior. I think that to be seen, and I guess I'll look at it as no different from a kid from Samoa that's being under recruited. That sometimes you would have to take the JUCO route to get re-recruited, and just understand that during those JUCO windows, whether it be spring ball, college coaches at every level, whether it be FBS, FCS, Division II, we're allowed to go to the JUCO programs to scout, evaluate, and that is an opportunity for your athlete to get re-recruited.
Thanks, Coach. And I'll just read two more, and then we'll close out. So we get from Janet, says, yes, God bless you, brother. And the last one is Faftai level coach and Pulse of Polynesia, entertaining and educational. Well, you're very welcome. So, Coach, I don't want to add any more because it was beautifully said, and to complete your segment that you both have shared. Have a safe trip back, on your next journey. As we close tonight, if you notice towards the end, Coach mentioned a lot about family. And recent days, we've seen the turmoil, the reality of what's going across the globe. So if you haven't, call your families and wish them, your love to them. There's a lot that's going across the world. Say a prayer for our men and women that are serving. So thanks to all our audience that are calling in. And before I end that month, I must mention, well, my Lola Thunder. So Thunder won. Congrats to the Thunder. And I had to say that for my Oklahoma folks. That being said, good night. God bless everyone. And thanks again for tuning in to Pulse of Polynesia. Oh, I forgot my hardworking crew that's behind the scenes, Sister Leaso, Sister Eileen, and Charlene, and Sister Janet. Yeah, that's the team. Oh, yeah, wangalo fui siu, so ya fui fui. And again, everyone have a blessed evening. Thanks for tuning in.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you guys. Yes,
Later,
take
Russo.
care. Yeah. Bye, 4.
Bye,